Hello and Happy New Year, my fellow friends, my fellow neighbors, and my fellow shining stars. The next trolley stop is here, and the next trolley stop is now the first trolley stop of 2021. Welcome back to episode number 102 of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series. My name is Jonathan Masiulionis, the president here at Empowered Publicity. We hope that you and your loved ones had a blessed, special, and magical holiday season. We are super excited to kick off the brand new year here at Empowered Publicity with another wonderful edition of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, and a message that's very timely, one that's on our hearts and on our minds. Today, we're going to be talking about the word change, but not just change, how to prepare for change and how to embrace change. Many of us, with the new year on the horizon, we're doing our part to step into the highest and best versions of ourselves. Of course, one of the things that the past 9 to 10 months have taught us with COVID and the pandemic is that change is inevitable. And it's so important to be able to embrace change, but also preparing for the next steps in the process. So yes, life can be an adventure. So why not enjoy some beautiful books in the process as well too? Our favorite middle grade series is back. The third installment in the Superhero School series. We're going to be talking about the brand new release, With the Passion of a Pig, courtesy of one of our favorite neighbors here at Empowered Publicity. You can check out her official website by logging on to DonnaSagerCowan.com. You can continue the conversation with Donna on social media. We've included her social media links below as well, and you can purchase your copy of not only With the Passion of a Pig, but the first 2 installments in the Superhero School series, With the Courage of a Mouse and With the Curiosity of a Cat, both now available. So again, the third installment, the next adventure in the Superhero School series. I'm super excited. There's no other way that I would rather kick off 2021 here at Empowered Publicity with our good friend and our good neighbor, Donna Sager Cowan, award-winning middle grade author and the creator of the Superhero School series, our featured guest here on episode number 102 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. Donna, we've embraced a lot of change together. We're talking about change. It's a brand new year. Happy New Year to you and to your family, and congratulations on the release of With the Passion of a Pig. So great to reconnect back with you in this fashion.
Oh, well, thank you, Jonathan. I am so excited to be back for my 3rd visit.
Yes.
And so, I was just thinking when you were rattling off the episode numbers, do you know that I guess I'm kind of on the 2s. I was episode number 12 and episode number 52, and now I'm back for episode 102. So that's pretty good synchronicity. And I'm excited to come out with this 3rd book. It's, it's growth for the characters. It's growth for the series. And it does talk a lot about change. And I'm so excited to be here today and talk about my new book.
It's interesting, before we get into our conversation, before we dive into the book and the latest installment of the Superhero School series, one of our dear friends and neighbors, John Parra, one of the best children's illustrators in the world. You're obviously familiar with his work. One of my favorite programs that I watch is NBC Saturday Night Live. And when they hit the 5 Timers Club, they get the cushy velvet robe. So when you hit the 3 Timer Club for the Children's Book Spotlight series, I'm still wondering what's what's the gift. I'm not sure if it's like a cushy velvet robe kind of thing, but you're starting to brainstorm ideas. Maybe it's like a nice little miniature trolley, or a genie lamp. Something very fitting of the Children's Book Spotlight series. For those of our friends and neighbors, for those of our listeners and viewers who are learning about your work for the first time, could you reset the table, so to speak, with the Superhero School series? Because these characters have been on a wonderful journey together, from the first installment with the Courage of a Mouse and the second installment in the Superhero School series with the Curiosity of the Cat. Before we dive into book 3, could you give a little synopsis of what the Superhero School series is, and to take us through the pages of the first 2 books so that we can dive into With the Passion of a Pig?
Well, sure. The Superhero School series is about, finding that superhero inside of you. It's finding that superhero attitude, but it's also about learning those things that you need to know to have a platform around you as a kid for this age, middle school, which is about the 7 to 12-year-old range, for them to figure out how to develop their own personality, how they're going to figure out how they're going to be going forward. And so we have these characters. We have Catt the Cat, and we have Simon Cheddar, who is a mouse. He's very resourceful. And then their best friends, Patty the pig and Freddie the tree frog. And they are going to superhero school. In the first book, Catt is actually from the real world, and she accidentally stumbles into Sweet Meadows, this world where the rest of them live, and she runs into Simon Cheddar. And she's kind of awestruck by how brave and courageous and kind of, a planner that he is, when she's so afraid of everything because she's kind of been abandoned by her owners. And so she's a little afraid, and she teams up with Simon to go to superhero school. And through the first book, With the Courage of a Mouse, it is about Simon and Catt developing this friendship, and Simon teaching Catt that it's okay to take chances, that it's okay to trust people. But also we have Catt teaching Simon that sometimes even the greatest plans affect other people. And so maybe you need to take those into consideration. So at the end of the book, they are literally teaching each other. And they develop this partnership where they kind of fill in the blank spaces for each other and actually are able to go forward and help other animals in their world. In the second book, we come back with The Curiosity of a Cat, which features Catt going on learning to apply her courage. And it does start out with them being sent by the superhero school teacher to go skydiving. Now, Catt's not real fond of skydiving. She doesn't want to jump out of a perfectly good plane. But when Simon's parachute doesn't deploy, she has to make a decision to go save her best friend. And in doing so, they end up in the jungle, and they find all of these animals that are being trafficked, for better word, by the monkeys. And so they team up with some of the other animals in the jungle and with their teams back in Sweet Meadows to try and rescue these animals and get them back to their home. So it's quite an adventure. They're on ships, they're on planes, they're on trains, they're on boats. We even have a seal-led rescue adventure in the middle of the book. So it's quite the adventure, and it's about teamwork and trusting your teammates to help you out and step up when you fail or when you may not have the right answer. So it is about working together. So in the Superhero School series, it's all about learning those little intangibles in life that we don't necessarily talk about bravery, about courage, about trust, about teamwork, about partnership, about self-esteem, and how we have to develop this core emotions to go forward so that we can figure out who we're going to be in life.
Donna, one of the many reasons why I love your work is the messages, the heartfelt, endearing messages that are found within your books. They're just so needed, especially for kids right now. You did not envision that there would be, what's been happening over the past, 9-10 months, however long, that, the world has changed, obviously. Your books have been able to help kids on so much more of a core level. Before we talk about With the Passion of a Pig and, dive into the book and the latest adventure, just over the course of this past year alone, what has it meant for you personally on a heart and soul level, and then on a professional level as well too, knowing that your work is not only reaching more kids, but that it's really a valuable resource for educators and for bringing families closer together. That's probably something that you didn't envision once you created the Superhero School series and once we started working together.
I actually did not. And, I really didn't even intend all of these little underlying messages and themes in the book. All I really wanted to do was tell a good story and to create these characters with some of the things that I've had to work through with my own grandchildren. There's a little bit of me and there's a little bit of each of my grandchildren in every one of these characters. And so a lot of times in the story, it is me relaying an event that we've already been through, and trying to help them figure out how to go forward. Because what I do know, and dealing with my own children and my grandchildren, is that there is not always an adult in the room to give them an answer. Sometimes they have to figure that out for themselves, and a lot of times we forget what it was like going through adolescence when we had so many questions, but there was no available answers. And so I'm hoping, and I've always hoped with this book series, is that I'm just bringing forward a little bit of thought about all of these ideas and these emotions for kids to help them go forward. Because I know I was a very curious kid, and the worst thing for me was an unanswered question. It would drive me nuts, and it actually affected how I made decisions about things if I didn't know. So I'm hoping that it at least starts the conversation and it brings forward, these ideas. Because I think at the end of the day, as an author, especially a children's author, that is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to bring forward curiosity and questions and conversations.
Those are all very important. It's we're entering into a new world. As we talked about in the green room before we began our conversation, before we began episode number 102 of the Children's Book Spotlights, it seems like all of us have gone through this giant portal. It seems like several portals, throughout 2020 and now into 2021. So the Superhero School gang have gone from Sweet Meadows into a human world called California. Now, I'm in California, you're in California, like San Diego. It's, been 3 months out here thus far. It's beautiful. When it comes to, the characters in the Superhero School series, especially Catt, it's just like this world where it's completely different, not a lot of trust with it. And it's, the adventure has become an even greater adventure, so to speak. Now, again, to not give, too much away from the story, but our favorite animal friends, our favorite animal neighbors become human children. So there's a different added element that comes in. And obviously, it's different being a child than it is, it's different, as a child than it is an animal. Could you take us, begin to go through inside the pages, and even before that, walk us through, if you could, knowing that you had book one, knowing that you had book two, you obviously had these ideas in mind. Could you tell us how the story fleshed itself out, how it happened to come to be, and then to be able to walk us through a little bit more about the adventure and what our listeners and viewers and our friends and neighbors can expect when reading With the Passion of a Pig?
Well, yeah, I actually wrote this book primarily in 2019 as I was finishing up the second book, and actually was done writing it in, early March of this year, or of 2020. And so I really did not tailor it for this time, but I find that sometimes that just works out. I had laid the entire series out, about 5 years ago, about what I was going to write about in each book. And this particular book was, Patty's turn. We tried to feature each one of the characters in their own book, and this was Patty's turn. And the storyline is that, the town matriarch, Mrs. Gristle, is missing, and they can't seem to locate her. And of course, Patty, with her tech skills, takes the forefront, and she tracks her cell phone to this field outside of Mouseville, and they discover this portal. Interestingly enough, this is the same way that Catt accidentally stumbled into Sweet Meadows, and so Catt's trying to caution them that they really don't want to mess with this thing. And they're kind of like, but we have to go find Mrs. G. And also they're concerned about the still missing animals that they weren't able to recover. And so they go through the portal, unbeknownst to them that when they step out on the other side, they are in California, and they have all transformed into children except for Catt. Now this causes a problem immediately, because now Catt cannot communicate with them. She can understand them still, but she cannot talk as she had been able to in Sweet Meadows. And so they go on a interesting journey trying to figure out not only how to find their missing patriarch, but how to function as children, because they're animals. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. There's a couple of scenes in there where they're trying to eat their favorite things that they would normally eat as animals, and find out that they're very upsetting to a child. At one point, I think Freddie tries to eat a grasshopper, and we have Bash, who accompanies them on this trip. He's one of the twin mice, or excuse me, the twin cats, and he ends up trying to grab some moldy cheese off of a mousetrap, all to very bad ends. And so they are still trying to figure that out. There's also, a scene where, Patty is very upset because all the boys are dressed. They're having to go to school because they were captured for being truant. Mm-hmm. And they're having to go to school, and the boys are all allowed to wear pants, but Patty has to wear a dress, and she's not happy about it. But it is what it is, and so they have to adapt. They have to change. They have to kind of figure out, and it dovetails really nicely with what's going on now, because I think we've all kind of gone through that portal into the unknown and become something other than what we were, before March. And we have to accept those things. We have to adjust to them. And I feel like you're constantly adjusting as new information comes in, which is what they do. And, there are a lot of revelations in book 3 with The Passion of a Pig. We find out more about Mrs. G that, most of my advanced readers are saying is pretty shocking. But, at the end of the day, it's about them being a team. It's about them working together and them going through these things together, and discovering how strong they are together and how much they need to support each other. One of my favorite scenes from this 3rd book is a very revealing scene in chapter 25 about Bash Reynolds, who is the one of the twin cats who was a bully early on in the series, and he is trying to change his ways, but he's having a hard time because obviously, once you establish yourself as something, or you earn that label, or you're given that label, it's often very difficult to be accepted as something else. And so I wanted to talk about that. How do you go about changing who everyone thinks you are to who you really are? So I think that's kind of also embracing the change.
And we're going to talk more about preparing for change and embracing change here in episode number 102 of the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight Series. Again, our featured guest here on the program this week, award-winning middle grade author and the creator of the Superhero School series, Donna Sager Cowan. The brand new release, the latest adventure in the Superhero School series, With the Passion of a Pig. It is now available. You can head on over to either Amazon.com. While there, feel free to leave a 5-star review for not only With the Passion of a Pig, but with the courage of a mouse and with the curiosity of a cat if you feel guided to do so. Or of course, you can connect with Donna via her official website, purchase your copies of the book that way, donnasagercowan.com. Links included below. I just so love saying just links included below, just makes things that much easier. It transcends the phrase character development, because when you take a look like at Catt the Cat, back in book 1, she was very insecure, had a lot of trust issues, was learning to love herself, and she's much stronger in book 3 than where she was in book 1. She even has a new relationship with her newly adopted sister, Mitty. So it's kind of like, she's stepping up into her role as a mentor almost of sorts, something that maybe Catt might have not have seen for herself in book 1. You had mentioned about Buff and Bash, and of course, back in book 1, they were, one could look like the enemies, the adversaries kind of thing, and how Bash is trying to change his ways. Could you talk to us about the character development, some of the specific quirks, so to speak, within each character, and how some of the endearing qualities have become even more endearing, while the characters are also learning to embrace change themselves and to be able to step into the highest and best versions of themselves? Could you talk a little bit more about that with us, if you could?
Well, sure. Again, at the beginning of this series, Catt is very, very unsure of herself. She doesn't trust anybody. She expects the worst. She thinks everything that goes wrong is her fault. And what she's learned through the series and how she's grown is she's learned to step into her own, to be secure in who she is. And even though she still has these feelings of inadequacy and self-esteem issues, she is getting better. And she even talks about the fact that she wants to emulate Simon, and how he is so helpful and ready and willing to mentor, and she wants to be more like Freddie, who is very caring and comforting, and kind of creates a very homey vibe and makes sure that everybody is well cared for. And then of course we have Simon. Simon has grown, but Simon's always going to be Simon. He has his pockets full of all of his, found treasures and trinkets that, he always pulls out at the last moment to, kind of create the perfect thing. And so, Simon is Simon, and Simon's constantly innovating, but he's also learning. In book 1, he was kind of gung-ho and just, it was all about the plan. It was all about solving the problem in front of him. And we saw in book 2 where he had to literally step back and say, this isn't about me. I'm mistreating my friends and loved ones because I'm so worried about the problem in front of me that I'm not seeing the other problems around me. And so he has to learn through that, and he has to learn that, Catt is his partner and she's his friend, and he can't always be the boss. Sometimes he needs to listen to her as well. And then we see this develop in book 3, where Simon and Catt cannot communicate. And Simon is very feeling like the odd man out because we have Patty and Freddie working together. Bash is being very protective of Catt because she's a cat and he gets it. He's also a cat in Sweet Meadows. And so Simon feels like he's the odd man out, and he really misses being able to talk to her, being able to tell her what he has planned, and listening to her go, well, wait a minute, what about this? Or have you considered the people's feelings in this? And so he's a little off balance the entire time he's in California because he can't talk to his best friend. He can't communicate with her. And he does have almost like a crisis where he really can't come up with a good plan because he feels like he needs Catt there. And it's an interesting development where he actually is able, once he lets go and trusts that their friendship is always going to be there, whether they can communicate or not, actually finds that he really can tell what Catt wants or what Catt's saying, which I think is a lovely thing, because I think sometimes we depend so much on verbal cues that we forget to look for those nonverbal cues. And it's a lesson that Simon needed to learn. And then, of course, we start out with Patty. Patty's an interesting character, and I love her. She's very secure with all things tech, all things electronic. But when she's put in a position to where she has to be around others, then she gets very insecure. She feels like everybody's looking at her, and she doesn't like that. Especially in the first book, we saw her almost trying to hide. She's like staying at home and hiding, and Freddie comes along, is trying to drag her out and get her out in society, and for people to understand how brilliant she is. And we see a little bit more of that take charge Patty in the second book, where she kind of lets everybody come into her barn and plan this big adventure, and she goes and she tries to figure it out. But here in the third book, where she's leading, she's leading with her brain. It's solving the problem. It's, figuring out how to get all the information and take all the clues and solve the puzzle. But in the middle of it, she realizes that she's left her heart behind. And if she doesn't follow her heart and use her brain together, then she's never going to find the answer. And she does. They brilliantly find the answer. They brilliantly come together in the end and save the day in time to get back for the next superhero class. But it's an interesting thing. And then, of course, we have Freddie. Freddie has kind of been a little bit more of a background character, where he takes care of everybody. He starts out taking care of just Patty, and then he sort of becomes the person who takes care of the team.
Caretaker, yeah.
Yeah, and he does. He's kind of always constantly cleaning things, running around, making sure everybody has food and pens and paper or whatever it is that they need. And then we see him in the third book, where he's still doing those things, but he's also starting to stand up for himself. He's also starting to question and not just go along with everything. And in fact, several times he says to Patty, let's just go home. Our plan that we had when we came here is no good anymore. We don't know what we're doing here. We don't have any help. We should just go home. And he makes a very good case several times through the book as to why they should go home. But ultimately, he does what the team wants to do, which is stay and solve the mystery. But we see him pushing back, and we finally see the rest of the team members give him credit for all that he does, and to finally say thank you, because this has been, a thing. He's constantly running around in the background, taking care of them, and nobody seems to notice. So, it was a great moment when, they are thanking him. I mean, it kind of embarrasses him, and he doesn't really like going, to the human world, and he doesn't certainly like, some of the things in the human world, most notably the food. But we do see him growing and becoming a little bit more mature. And then finally, we have Bash Reynolds, who, he's kind of been in the background. We've mentioned him in book 1 and book 2. But he comes along on this adventure, and he really kind of stepped forward as a protector for the team. He is providing security. He makes sure that everyone's taken care of, and kind of takes on all comers, that are trying to, interfere with the superhero team. But even in the middle of that, he questions whether or not he's part of the team, or if they're just using him for his skills, or whether his twin brother is right, and that nobody will ever accept him as anything other than what he's always been, which is a bully.
There's an exceptional amount of growth from each of the characters, and we're even seeing them tune into their emotions and their feelings more. we're seeing that not only, just the character development, but we're seeing the emotional development, within each of the characters within the book. I do want to mention, one thing that actually came to mind. I know that one of my favorite parts of With the Passion of a Pig is that when they're all having pizza and they're dividing out, like, okay, we need to make sure this food lasts. They're doing their part to, make sure that they're all being fed and they're portioning out the food. And when I was just kind of getting like this visual in mind a little bit as well too. And, one of the timely themes as well too is the fact that, they've gone through the portal, they've gone into California because they miss their friends and their family. And that's something that's been the case with many of us throughout the past several months as the result of, not necessarily being able to travel. Many people weren't able to necessarily spend the holidays with those that they love and they care about. And there is this sense that when there is this reconnection that will be happening in person, that'll be all that much more joyful and love-filled in the process, which is just such a wonderful feeling. You have experienced a tremendous amount of change. That could be the understatement of episode number 102 of the children's book Spotlight series, but so much change and so much growth that you've experienced. How has your writing and the creation, publishing, promoting, being with the kids, talking to parents, talking to educators, how has all of that helped you to navigate your own changes in your life?
Well, I think that every time I have a conversation, whether it's an interview, conversation with a parent, a conversation with a teacher, or, talking to kids in the classroom, or even individually, it's like I learn something new. And this has kind of been my guiding point throughout my life is, be open to learning something new. Even at my age, I don't know everything. I don't have the answer to everything. Now, I know my grandkids like to say that I know everything, but it really isn't true. And I think as long as we open our mind and allow, learning to happen, and we're willing to accept that mistakes happen and that you don't learn anything from being perfect, you only learn from messing up. It's okay. It's okay to step out there and take these risks, like the superhero team. Yes, it was a huge risk for them to go through that portal. And, they do talk about that, it was very risky. They had no idea what they were stepping into or what they were going to find on the other side. And of course, there were quite a few changes for them. And, I try to think of myself as being one of these characters, or sometimes several of them. And I have to apply it to my own life, because life has changes and you have to learn and adapt and embrace those changes, or they're just going to mow you down, or they're going to weigh you down, and you can't move forward. And I don't like change. I'm not a fan of it. I like things, the way they are. And I like scheduling things out, but that's not always possible. So, I've had to learn, especially through writing this book, that opportunities happen sometimes at the last minute. And I just have to go, what? I'm just going to wing it. I'm just going to go with it, and we'll see how it turns out. And sometimes it turns out amazing. And, in talking to the kids, it's like I'm always so inspired, when talking to them about writing books, or about my books, or about my characters, or some of the themes, talking to the parents who just said, I read this book with my child and they just absolutely loved it. Or, a parent that says, I got this book for my child and they just would not put it down. It's like I had to take it away from them so they would go to bed. And it's, I just think, wow, I never would have imagined this. When you and I met before I published the first book, I was terrified to do an interview. I was terrified to have to do a school visit and presentation. I was terrified to get in front of people and talk about myself or my book or anything that I write. and now, I host a writing group. I do other things around writing. I help other authors, and it's created all of these opportunities and avenues for me that I never expected. And it had made, writing books and writing this series so much more than I ever anticipated. And even even if I never sell another book in my lifetime, it's been the greatest adventure for me. And so, I kind of think that I am on the superhero school squad, and going on these crazy capers. And, it gives me a lot of fuel for ideas for the books going forward. And, some new series that are going to be coming.
which we will be talking about, coming attractions. It'll be great when people, across the country can, enjoy movies, and coming attractions will mean coming attractions, so to speak. So we're going to be talking about what's to come, not only in 2021 and 2022, as we conclude our children's book spotlight series, our trolley stop of the week, within the course of the next couple of moments. I do want to mention that it's so important when you're moving through change, when you're preparing for change, you're embracing change, you're moving through change. This may seem cliche, but to look back, the only time, it's an expression, the only time that you're supposed to look back is to see how far that you've come. And I take a look, and one of the most treasured memories and moments that I have in the near 7 years of Empowered Publicity is the trip that we had to the Tucson Festival of Books, which it seems like 20 years ago right now, but you were at the a school in Tucson. I believe it was the International School of Tucson, or I
Right.
forget the name of it.
Yeah.
But this was a school that the children were immersed in, I believe, 4 languages, if I'm not mistaken, 3 or 4 languages.
Yeah.
And just the attention to detail, they showered you with love when
Yeah.
you walked into the building. Like, they were totally, the headmaster of the school, shared so much about your work. They were talking about your favorite characters, and it was a great experience. And it's also a way to be able to say, well, those things are going to be coming back. Because of course, throughout 2020, for the most part, for 10 months out of the year, school visits, if anything, were just through a screen. They were through Zoom or Skype or FaceTime. That's it. And you have come such a long way yourself. You talk about the fact how you were afraid to do an interview for the first time, and now to be able to have your work featured on television stations across the country, nationally syndicated radio shows, popular podcasts, children's book blogs. It's the fact that, I say this not just because we've been working together, but literally my favorite middle grade book series of all time is the Superhero School series, right? Now, it's interesting because also one of my favorite passages from the book, and I'm going to paraphrase this. I think that Catt was like scrambling or running. This is during like the first 50 pages of the book or so. And she said, I can't afford the extra weight that was slowing me down. And it's interesting because, at the very beginning of the year, sometimes I'll use an exercise analogy. At the very beginning of the year, some people say, right, I'm gonna shed the belly fat. I'm gonna shed the 25 pounds kind of thing, right? And it's a matter of being able to, you get to a point where you say, okay, I'm ready. I understand I need to do something different, right? Change is here. I can't, as the expression goes, what you resist persists. You got to let go of any sort of doubt or any fear or any resistance. So there are many people, not only across the country, but around the world, starting 2021, and they're ready. And they may necessarily be looking for some strategies, so to speak. But if anything, I would take a look at this as keys. So with this being said, Donna, what do you feel are some keys, some tips to be able to help people prepare for change and embrace change in this brand new year of 2021?
Well, I would say the big keys are to, to talk about risk. You have to assess the risk, you have to prepare for the risk, and you have to be willing to uh, modify it, to the level that you're comfortable with. So that's the first step. And I think the second step is to accept that change is going to happen, whether you resist it or not. Change is going to happen in your life. Nothing stays the same. Stagnant waters are not good. You have to keep things moving. So accepting change would be the second one. And I think the third one is to not only embrace change, but to kind of go with the change, to kind of catch up to the change, to kind of be the leader of change. And so instead of playing this game of catch up, how about going out there and blazing a new trail of change? So, because I know that in my own life, when I'm in charge of what's going on, I'm most happy. And the results are not always what I anticipated or expected, but I always happy, with what eventually happens or what eventually the outcome is. So I would say we should all expect change. Change happens whether we want it to or not. So embrace that change, but go beyond that and go out there and blaze that trail towards change and make it change that you want.
There's two things, if I may add, as well to that inspired me after reading With the Passion of a Pig. One of all things, it's very interesting how With the Passion of a Pig brought me back to a cult classic from the early 2000s by the name of Joe Dirt, with of
Yes.
course, David Spade from SNL fame. And I believe he used the phrase, keep on keeping on.
Mhm.
And it's important to be open to at least looking at life through that lens, that, okay, I'm further along than where I am. I think that the amazing author on so many levels, Dr. Wayne Dyer, referred to as the father motivation or the godfather motivation.
Mhm.
He would always say, try to be a better version of who you are today than yesterday.
Right.
And to be able to look at things from that lens versus, why aren't where I want to be, right? Many of us, I think that, throughout 2020, we wanted to fast forward to get to 2021, right?
Mhm.
So that we could just be at this new year. But I think that, some people, and again, hindsight is officially now 2020, Donna. It's now in the rearview mirror.
Right.
It's important, even if you're going through something a little bit challenging, to say there's always a blessing in this. There's always a silver lining. Sometimes you might have to look really, really, really close and remind yourself multiple times per day. But the other thing that comes to mind as well is to celebrate the victories, even if they're just the small ones, right? And we're going to talk about, children's and middle grade authors a little bit with this next question that I have. But sometimes authors might want to be the New York Times bestselling author. Great goal to have if you're a children's author, by the way. But, it's important that you set a goal of, selling 1,000 copies of your first book. Have that be as the first small victory before you get to the New York Times bestselling author. Some authors might say, I want to find a great agent, right? And maybe to have as a first goal, to have, to officially create a series, right? So that you can, attract the right agent that can be interested in your books. This leads me into my next question. And of course, we're beginning to wind down our time with one of our favorite neighbors, Donna Sager Cowan, award-winning middle grade author, the creator of the Superhero School series, the next adventure in the Superhero School series. It is now available, With the Passion of a Pig. You can purchase your copy by heading on over to Amazon.com or by visiting Donna's official website at donnasagercowan.com. You can stay connected with her via any of her social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, via the links below as well. Remember, if you are on Amazon, feel free to leave a 5-star review for With the Passion of a Pig, along with books 1 and 2 in the Superhero School series, With the Courage of a Mouse and With the Curiosity of a Cat. Of course, if you feel guided to do so, great way to kick off the new year of 2021. Many of those of our listeners and viewers and our friends and neighbors are either aspiring or rising shining stars in the kid-lit community, and they are beginning to take their next steps, whether it be writing their first book or whether it be releasing their next book. Many are taking the most important steps to this point. They've got some decisions, whether it be, okay, well, I've got a publisher that's interested in me. Do I go work with them? Or I have this television opportunity that's presenting itself. I'm kind of moving outside of my comfort zone. Maybe I've never done a television interview before, right? Many people are fully stepping into their life purposes. Even if you're not a children's author, many people are fully immersing themselves into their life purpose in 2021. What's some words of advice? Because, 2020 was a little heavy, and I'm not quoting, and maybe I am channeling my inner Marty McFly from Back to the Future, because 2020 seemed a little heavy. He mentioned the word heavy in Back to the Future a lot. What are some words of advice for children's and middle grade authors that you would like to share who are moving forth in their most important steps to date in 2021, as well as even those who are just, starting their first business or who are becoming parents for the first time? These words of advice that can help them prepare for, embrace change, but welcome it and really celebrate 2021, because this really is a clean slate, a brand new chapter on so many different levels.
Right. Well, we got several questions in there, so I'm going to try and answer them in the order I think that you were asking them. So first of all, I want to say that, one of the lessons that 2020 has taught us, and again, you do have to celebrate all of those small victories, because here's the thing, there are always lessons along the journey. And if you skip them, then you aren't prepared for that opportunity ahead or that moment to shine ahead. You often have to learn something going through the struggle to be prepared for what's on the other side. So we can't skip over that step. And secondly, 2020 was the year of the book. We had so many people writing books for the first time because they had more time and opportunity as we were, kept at home. The printing companies are just overwhelmed over the summer trying to print all of these millions of books that came out in 2020. And I have to say, that's a huge victory for all of us as artists and writers, because, many people have said that, books are kind of a dying industry. And I have to say, well, look at this year. Look at this year, at 2020, this past year, and how many new books and new authors are out there. And so for any new authors or people in the middle of their writing and stuff like that, my advice to them would be, do what makes your heart shine. Because as long as you're following your heart and you're giving everything that you have and you have the passion, it's not going to lead you wrong. Whether or not you need an agent, whether or not you need to be on television, only you know that answer. So trust yourself. Again, back to Catt, you got to learn to trust yourself, that you know everything you need to know to step forward. And don't be afraid of those mistakes. And to everyone else, embrace the change, because there is so much knowledge in change. We can't learn from perfection, but we also can't learn from standing still. The world is out there, the knowledge is out there. You have to step into it to grow, to be more. So don't be afraid of it. Go out and grab it. It's one of my favorite people in the world is Shirley MacLaine, and she says, go take the world by the horns and make it your ride to work. And it's it's a great quote, and I love her for saying that. And it really does tell you that, anybody can change. And here's my one quote that leads me through life. And it's simple, but it's true. She believed she could, so she did.
I think it's a perfect time for all of us to just breathe that in. It's one of the things that we're starting to do here in 2021 in the Children's Book Spotlights is that when someone, that have the blessing of interviewing takes time to share something that just we really need to take in, just to give that pause, breathe in and not jump to the next question kind of thing. That was beautiful, Donna. Thank you so much for sharing that, by the way. One of the things that I also love about the Children's Book Spotlight series, this again being your third trolley stop, is the fact that there's so much that a creative outlet, a creative venture, something that we create teaches us.
Mm-hmm.
What did writing with the passion of a pig? What did this book specifically, as I like to call it, book 3? Book 3, because there's book 1, book 2, book 3. That's the publicist in me. But what did writing with the passion of a pig, what did it teach you about yourself, and what did it teach you about life?
Well, I think a lot of the things that it taught me are in the pages of the book. I ran into all kinds of obstacles and things that got in the way of writing the book, of finishing the book, of getting the book published. And, so you have to be persistent. You have to be willing to, adjust. I had to change the release date. I mean, it kind of made it very difficult for me to not stay with my original release date, because I feel like that's a promise to my readers. But there were issues that I could not overcome, and there was no other way. So I had to accept and embrace that change and go with this new release date in 2021. And I'm thrilled with it. And it gave me the opportunity to make it better, to provide some extras, but also, it taught me that, there's no place like home. There's no place like the family around me, and those people who love me, and those people who help me when I'm down, and when I'm up, and when I'm somewhere in between. So I have to kind of remember all of those things. And I think you'll find them in the pages of With the Passion of a Pig, that at the end of the day, we are who we are. Our friends are who they are, with all their flaws and problems, and we still love them. And that, sometimes family is the people you choose, not the people you're born with.
I think that's something that many people around the world have become to, have grown to understand more, because as part of change in life, many people are, whether it be moving to different places, breaking free from, older dynamics, whether it be, an older family relationship, things along the lines of that. I know when I moved out to San Diego, the first person that I actually met here at my new residence was a children's author named Kevin, who has a wonderful non-for-profit here in San Diego. And, we've developed this great friendship, and it's just like, I feel a close soul connection with him. Right. Mm-hmm. So even though, I, on the surface, it may have looked like I left the familiar back in Buffalo, I had prepared for this move for such a long period of time, and I very much have been fully embracing it in the process. And of course, there's so much to come. Like, this is the thing. I think that even the people that were not the optimists are like saying, all right, 2021, let's just try it again and see if we can get it right, kind of thing. There's so much to look forward to in 2021 and 2022. One of my favorite expressions, one of my really deepest heartfelt beliefs is that the best memories and moments of our life have not even happened yet. So why would you throw in the towel? Why would you give up? I am so looking forward to learning more about With the Heart of a Hero, which is
Yes.
book 4 in the superhero school series. And there's obviously other things there afterwards, so to speak. But
Mhm.
could you give us a little bit of a sneak peek of what our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors can expect as the superhero school series grows and expands and evolves beyond With the Courage of a Mouse, With the Curiosity of a Cat, and With the Passion of a Pig?
Right. Well, the 4th book in the series, With the Heart of a Hero, is Freddie's book. Now, Freddie's waited a very long time to get a moment to shine,
He has.
and everybody is so excited. So we go back to the superhero school after their big adventure in California, and the school is in shambles. They find out that Mrs. G actually was their teacher, and that she's gone. She's not there anymore. And so they have no one to teach the school. And of course, Mayor Philip decides that the superhero team members are now established superheroes and that they know much more than the teacher ever could. And so now they are tasked with teaching the classes at superhero school. And specifically Freddie has to manage and administrate this and assign everybody to teach the classes, but they have 2 new students that are very unruly and very disruptive. And this puts Freddie in a very difficult situation because he's not confrontational, but he does need to get control of these 2 new students who are disrupting the entire school and the things that they're trying to do. So it is mostly about, Freddie overcoming his kind of feelings of just smoothing things over by making peace. He really has to make a stand about what is right, and he has to stand up for himself. And so I'm still working on developing the full story, but at this point, Freddie is learning many lessons because he's kind of hid himself in the shadows. And now, when he comes into the light, he has to learn how to deal with fame. He has to deal with not being able to hide and be unknown and be kind of forgotten about. He has to step into this moment in time, and he has to become bigger than himself, and it's a struggle for him. But of course, his hero team members are going to step forward and help him out, and it's pretty fun, adventure. He's going to be teaching cooking classes, and he's teaching them how to pack a go bag so they're prepared for any adventure. We've got Catt teaching meditation and empathy, and we have Bash Reynolds. He is teaching how to defend yourself. And of course, then we have, Patty teaching the students all things tech and how to prepare for a mission. And then finally, we have Simon, and he is pulling out all of his skills about how to plan and devise and make do with what you have to, finish on top with your mission and get back home. So it should be interesting because they are going to be learning as they're teaching, as all teachers do. You learn just as much as your students do by teaching them, because everything is new and different, and it's a different perspective. So I'm excited for With the Heart of a Hero. And in the end, when Freddie is able to stand up for himself, he does solve the mystery of where these 2 new students come from, and it's kind of a surprise. So he is going to be the hero in the end, and he is going to save Sweet Meadows.
I think it's a really cool thing to say when the student becomes the teacher. So it's just so fascinating how things will be coming full circle with the heart of a hero. Of course, as a little tip of the cap to one of our favorite neighbors, Mr. Rogers, for those who are, tuning into the Empowered Publicity Children's Book Spotlight series, or just learning about Empowered Publicity for the first time in 2021, one of our deepest sources of inspiration is, of course, Mr. Rogers, the host of the beloved children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And one of the things that Fred, Mr. Rogers, had shared with us before he passed away, and he did this in several episodes of The Neighborhood, I believe, but more so in various commencement speeches, talks, and of course he did this when he received his Lifetime Achievement Award at the Daytime Emmys. And he always kept the time, Donna, whether it be 5 seconds or 10 seconds or 30 seconds or 60 seconds. He encouraged us to help to remind us to remember those who help to love us into being.
Right.
And there's been, I know that your husband, who loves Italian food, by the way, I now know that he loves Ilio DiPaolo's Italian food, I might add.
Yes.
Your children, your grandchildren, like you have such a great support system. Who would you like to recognize here on episode number 102 of the Children's Book Spotlight series? Some of the people along the journey, not just this past year in 2020, but even as you're writing, your gifts were beginning to flourish at a young age. Who were some of those who helped love Donna Sager Cowan into being?
Well, I always have to thank my husband, because he goes on these crazy journeys with me, and I have to tell you, he's the most patient man in the world. Because sometimes he just goes, I have no idea where you're going, but okay. And I love that about him. So I have to give him a lot of credit, and I have to say, I've met so many amazing authors and writers on my journey. And for me, my grandchildren are my absolute heart. I would probably, walk through fire for them. I would step in front of a train for them. And I try to give back everything that they give to me. And it's like, grandchildren are your greatest reward. And I have to thank them, but I also have to say that my mother, she was the greatest encourager of me from a very young age to read, to write, to tell stories, to keep working, to keep, that craft going, and to develop it, and to listen to all of the silly stories that I came up with, at such a young age, to the point right before I published my first book. She was there, and I think she's still here encouraging me when I have really down days. And I think, had she not been there, had these people not been there encouraging me to keep going when it's hard, then I'm not sure that I would. And of course, I have to say that, you and Allison Klakowitz and Lori Manosh and Susie Powers, they are all children's authors, and they have been an amazing team for me. They have beta read for me. They picked me up when I've been feeling down, and they have helped me along the way, and they support me in everything that I do. And so I really want to just take a moment to thank them, because it has been an amazing journey, and I think it will be an even greater journey going forward. And I'm not afraid of it anymore. It's like, I'm so excited to just go out there and see what happens next. It's like turning the page of a book. What's going to happen?
Well, this is a perfect segue to conclude episode number 102 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. But you are, of course, familiar with, as a little tip of the cap to one of our favorite Disney classics. You go back to 1992, Robin Williams is the Genie of the Lamp, rechristened through Will Smith in the live action remake of Disney's Aladdin. So, of course, it's time for 3 wishes. And for those, again, who are, new to the Empowered Publicity family, you're now subscribed to Empowered Publicity's official YouTube channel. Thank you very much for the subscriptions, by the way. And you're wondering, well, what is 3 wishes, Jonathan? And or do you carry a genie lamp wherever you go? Well, at least in my office, I do. So You know, Donna, you've received many wishes over the course of the year. So we're going to do something a little bit different to conclude our trolley stop here together tonight. There's one wish that I would like to be able to have you give to the children of the world. That's number one. Number two, to be able to give out to educators and parents. And number three, to be able to give out to children's authors and illustrators around the world. Now, they can be the same wish for all three, but I think, again, we're embracing change. We're helping our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors to prepare for embrace for change. So let's start off with the children. What would be the wish that you would like to send out to children right now?
My wish to children would have to be that they know love. Because if they don't have love, then everything else is irrelevant. So I wish them love in all things.
For parents and for educators, what would be the wish that you would like to send out to them?
I wish for them knowledge that they can share, because that's our job as adults, is to share what we know with the next generation coming behind us, so that they're smarter, faster, better. So I wish them knowledge.
And at the same point in time, we're also sending all parents and educators big virtual hugs, because they did a tremendous job in 2020, and we'll be doing, the stress will be alleviated more so in 2021. And then for children's authors and illustrators, whether it be ones that are just now stepping into their craft, they're firing up the computer for the first time and getting ready to write chapter one of their book, or who are taking, who are writing the next release in their series, or becoming an Amazon best-selling author, a New York Times best-selling author. What would be the wish that you would like to send out to children's authors and illustrators, whether it be self-published or published?
Well, I want to send them my thanks and congratulations, because this is not an easy job. It's a very often a lonely job. And to be able to persist with it is in itself a giant gift, to the world that they're giving. And so what I wish for them is, I wish for them all of the inspiration and belief behind their book, that it goes out into the world, and that they have as many readers as they would like to have. Because at the end of the day, all we're doing is putting a mirror up to the world and showing it to you. So I want to encourage them, and I wish them all the success in the world.
This has been maybe my favorite trolley stop of our three that we've spent together, Donna. Once again, for our friends and neighbors who would like to be, and our listeners and viewers who would like to be able to purchase your copy of the latest installment, the next adventure in the Superhero School series, With the Passion of a Pig, it is now available. You can head on over to Donna's official website, donnasagercowan.com, or head on over to amazon.com. If you're on Amazon, feel free to leave a 5-star review for not only With the Passion of a Pig, but also, of course, in order to start book 3, you kind of got to know where everything began back in book 1 and book 2. It's kind of like watching The Karate Kid Part 3 or Back to the Future Part 3 without watching the original classic, so to speak. So do the due diligence if you feel guided to do so, of course, and check out With the Courage of a Mouse and With the Curiosity of a Cat. We are so looking forward to everything that is to come in 2021 here at Empowered Publicity. And before we officially put the bow on this week's episode of the Children's Book Spotlight series, we want to thank all of you for your continued support of Empowered Publicity and for the Children's Book Spotlight series specifically. If you are new to Empowered Publicity and you would like, if you feel inspired as the result of learning more about Donna's work, and you are now ready to prepare for and embrace change in your own life, if this message has inspired you, if it's brought healing into your life or the life of your little one, if you feel that this message needs to be shared with someone in need, we encourage you, if you already haven't done so, to subscribe. It is for free to subscribe to Empowered Publicity's official YouTube channel, and to be able to share episode number 102 of the Children's Book Spotlight series on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, any of your social media platforms of choice in the process, or your favorite children's author, children's book Facebook group or MeWe group. If you are a children's author or illustrator and you would like to join the Empowered Publicity family and share your inspiring story and the release of your brand new children's book here in 2021 on the Children's Book Spotlight Series, you can connect with us via our official website at empoweredpublicity.com or any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen. If you are a children's author or illustrator and you would like for us to share your brand new children's book on the all-new season of the Story Time with Mr. Jonathan, you now know how to connect with us as you see the website on your screen, empoweredpublicity.com, and any of our social media platforms as well. And if you are a children's author or an inspirational or spiritual author and you would like to learn more how we can be of service to you at Empowered Publicity here at PR from the Heart, if you would like to be able to facilitate your own book media tour in a city of your choosing, if you would like to facilitate your own virtual media tour, if you would like to learn more information about our media coaching and mentoring program, as Donna had mentioned, there were a lot of books that were put out in 2020. So you might be wondering, all right, I need to step out and share my message with the world. Well, let us help you and let your dreams take flight in the process. You can schedule your own courtesy discovery call by logging on to empoweredpublicity.com. And again, let us see how we can be of service to you in this brand new year. I do hear the trolley, and literally we do live right next door to the San Diego trolley. So as we always like to let our listeners and viewers and our friends and neighbors know that when we hear that trolley, we gotta go. But yes, this has been such a tremendous trolley stop. Again, one last time, the brand new installment, the latest adventure in the Superhero School series with the Passion of a Pig. It is now available by heading on over to donnasagercowan.com, Donna's official website, along with you can head on over to amazon.com as well. And while there, feel free to check out the first two installments of the Superhero School series with The Courage of a Mouse and with The Curiosity of a Cat. To all of you, our friends, our neighbors, our listeners and viewers, and of course, our shining stars, we want to thank all of you for your continued support of the Children's Book Spotlight series and for Empowered Publicity. We want to thank you for being you, for preparing for change, for embracing change, and for moving forward to the most important steps of your life's purpose. But above all else, as we like to say here at Empowered Publicity, thank you for what it is that you are doing for the kids. And thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world. We look forward to spending time with you very soon here at Empowered Publicity for episode number 103 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. Again, thanks to all of you who have subscribed to our YouTube channel as well. We look forward to sharing many more adventures with all of you in this brand new year of 2021. So for Donna Sager Cowan, award-winning middle grade author and the creator of the Superhero School series, for myself, Jonathan Masiulionis, we look forward to spending much more time with all of you once again very soon, as our next trolley stop will be a very special one indeed, a much magical one in the process. Thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world.